Good morning. Would everyone take their seats, please? I apologize for the delay. We were just had to have our quorum in place. So again, we're sorry to be a bit late here. Before we proceed with the Committee on Capital Improvements, I'd like to remind you that the items from the Committee on Administration will be heard under new business at the 4 p.m. board meeting as indicated in your revised agenda. Commissioner Salgado.
Sure. On this day, Wednesday, December 12th, 2012 at 10:55 a.m., meeting of the Committee on Capital Improvements of the Board of Commissioners of Chicago Park District is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Chair Commissioner Koldyke. Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado.
Here.
Commissioner Shalaby.
Here.
Commissioner Lavelle. President Trobert.
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Allen, General Superintendent Michael Kelly, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item 1 from the Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities, authorization to enter into contracts for Columbus Park artificial turf fields. Rob Raymond.
Just one moment.
Didn't have enough time to boot up.
Yeah, sorry. Right. Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Rob Raymond, recommending authorization of a contract with L&R Construction Company for Columbus Park artificial turf fields. Columbus Park is at 500 South Central Avenue. The overall park is about 135 acres in the Central Region, 29th Ward in the Austin community. Construction of this project is to be substantially completed by July 1st, 2013, for a contract amount not to exceed $2,307,297. This is the lowest of 6 bids, and the bids were very tight on this project. This is a overall aerial of Columbus Park, and the project area in question is on the southeast quadrant, where you can see we have 4 baseball fields and a few soccer fields. This is a very heavily used area, high demand for both little leagues and adult leagues. Several high schools vie for the space. High schools in the area include Fenwick, Christ the King, Clark, Austin, Mason, Rosary, and others. And as you can see from this photo, even here from this far away, that there's a lot of damage to the field due to demand. But the real problem that we're having at these fields is drainage. These are the fields after a significant storm event. I think this was around 4 inches of water in about 3 hours. So what happens is we have a lagoon in that area that inundates the fields, and over the years the historic drainage in these fields has been disconnected or destroyed through various roadway projects and other projects that have basically rendered these fields there's no drainage there currently. So we have a two-part problem. Again, just panning through the fields, you can see it stretches through the entire area. So what do we plan to do about it? We're looking at building 2 significant artificial turf fields on the north part of the site. One is combination soccer, lacrosse, football. The other is a large combination field for baseball, softball, and t-ball with adjustable lengths of running lengths. And then to the south, we have natural turf, but what we'll be doing is we'll be extending field drainage, subsurface drains across the entire site to help drain the field. There also will be underground water detention to help manage large storm events. And then in addition, we're building a weir, basically, land structure around the lagoon, and putting in an outfall from the lagoon based on a certain height. So before that lagoon can inundate the fields, it goes to an unrestricted drainage line that goes to the city sewers to keep it from inundating the field. And then the fields are taking care of their own drainage through underwater storage detention, infiltration, and an eventual connection to the city storm sewers. It should be noted that the project is funded by $1.1 million in OSLAD funds. That was leveraged by $1.4 million in Park District match for a total project cost of around $2.5 million. I could take any
And I
questions.
do. Rob touched on OSLAD, but I do want to thank, for the record, Governor Quinn specifically, because without Governor Quinn's help in prioritizing these funds, it may not have become available to Columbus as well.
Could you just explain what that is? What that? What the funds-
OSLAD funds. It's open space, and land acquisition development. Sorry, yeah. And again, it's a state source that we apply for projects like these. And I think a big part of the program is infrastructure improvements and job creation. I believe the governor was at the site with the aldermen celebrating the collection of these funds with other.
Alderman Deb Graham.
Did we get out there? Did we get him out there when he could canoe the site?
Yeah.
No, it was a dry day actually when they were there. So.
Rob, I've been out to this park for basketball games and the like, and pretty busy park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a nice, large regional park with a lot of demand, so it's bringing people from all over the place.
So, Rob, the disaster scenario here is we do this, and all that water that you showed, we haven't got our calculations right. We're not storing it right. And we put it in the sewers, and then the sewers can't handle the storm, and water ends up in people's basement. And they said, Park District, you made a huge mess out here. So, what's the engineering behind this? The calculations, the care that we've taken to make sure that we're going to solve a problem rather than create one.
Right. There's a heavy civil component. So we have a civil sub that spent a lot of time with this, and they have to coordinate in order to get permit with the Department of Water Management. And the Department of Water Management is pulling up their own maps, helping us work through what size of pipes we're connecting to, what the city can handle, as well as holding us to our on-site storage capacities. And we have really large, I think nearly oversized storage capacity at this location. So not only are we able to take, now will the fields be wet after a 100-year storm? They're going to be wet. But are they going to stay wet for days? No, they're not. They're going to drain off. And we've seen that in other locations where we've had drainage problems. You will get from time to time some standing water, but it's going away a lot faster than it used to. Right now, there's no drainage, and the lagoon is inundating the field. So it sits there until it sinks into the ground. We won't have that condition anymore.
Just sort of historical curiosity. Was this problem created when they built the interstate through there, and what exactly happened?
I think there were lines that were help draining the field. The field was draining through like a little prairie runnel that was going to the lagoon. There were drain lines that were bringing relief to those areas, and I believe, from what I hear anecdotally, and I don't have proof of it necessarily, but from what I hear, the roadway construction and some other projects did in basically the historic drainage that used to manage water on the site.
Well, and Tom O'Connor isn't here, but he's our resident Columbus Park historian, so he could give you the history. But I think this has been a problem for over 50 years now that we're correcting.
Yeah, I think this is great, especially on the issue of the flooding and the use, because a lot of these schools and teams lose a lot of games and practices due to the flooding.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, can you tell us a little bit about the bidding process? I understand there were 6 bids.
Yeah,
bidders
sure.
on
There were 6 bids on the project. And they were all very close together. So if this one is 2.3, actually 2,307,000. The second bid was 2,329,000. So on a project that size, that's really tight. And the other ones are falling in at 2.4, 2.5, 2.5, and then there's an outlier. No, actually, yeah, and then there's an outlier at 3.3 that wouldn't have been considered.
And what about what was the community process talking about doing this field?
Bob Foster was our project manager on this one, so he met at the park several times with the community and the aldermen, and just to talk about field configuration and use.
I was there too. I mean, I've met with the Dwayne Truss and his wife are the Park Advisory Council chairs. This project has probably been in discussion for 4 or 5 years, and a big thanks to Pat LeVar, who is the COO, got it over the finish line too. There's a lot of discussion on this project.
But a lot of discussion. There's ultimately great community support for this.
Oh yeah, great community support. It's part of really what got it rose quickly was the traditional wet springs that we have here, and it being useless. And Columbus Park, for as big as it is, this is the only athletic fields really to speak of for that big park. And with all that water, they would lose almost an entire season from March to June.
Further discussion?
I'd move to accept.
Do you have a second? Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Will the secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado,
Aye.
Commissioner Shalaby,
Aye.
President Trobert.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Director of Planning, again, Construction and Facilities Authorization to enter into an agreement for chilled water service for Maggie Daly Park. Rob Raymond.
Thank you. Again, Rob Raymond, recommending that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to enter into a contract with MDE Thermal Technologies Incorporated for chilled water service at Maggie Daly Park. I'm sure you're all familiar. Maggie Daly Park is at 331 East Randolph in the Loop, Ward 42. The contract period is 20 years from the commencement date. The upfront capital cost is not to exceed $200,000. It's an upfront one-time expense, and the operating estimate per year is $98,440. It's based on current consumption and capacity rates. There's 25% minority business participation and 5% women business enterprise participation. This is the site as it stands currently. The Park District seeks to create, on this location, a new world-class multifunctional park at Maggie Daly Park in the area that includes Daly Bicentennial Plaza and Peanut Park. The ice skating ribbon will be reintroduced into Maggie Daly Park in a new and exciting way through the creation of a skating ribbon that's nearly 1/4 mile long and provides 27,500 square feet of ice surface, nearly twice the size of a traditional rink. With the planning of the new skate ribbon, the design team has explored several options for a condensing system used to create the ice sheet. Again, a rendering of the ice sheet to come in Maggie Daly Park. The equipment currently serving the ice rink is air-cooled condensing equipment and is undersized and outdated for the proposed skating feature. This equipment is located in the fieldhouse mechanical room, but is sized to handle only half the capacity of the new ice ribbon. 2 condensing equipment options were considered as viable and further studied by the design teams. The options were for either a cooling tower, condensing system, or a chilled water service. The Park District, with the design team, studied several components associated with these equipment options, including capital and operational cost, long-term maintenance, and all associated equipment, environmental benefits, and aesthetics. Considering all these factors, the chilled water service is recommended as the most viable option for the condensing system at Maggie Daly Park. Chilled water service is available locally through Thermal Chicago, a cooling district with the nearest chiller plant located actually across the street from the project at 300 East Randolph. Thermal Chicago Corporation owns and operates the only district chilled water system within the city of Chicago. Thermal Chicago has 5 district chilled water systems and is the sole provider for district cooling services for the downtown area. The Thermal Chicago system began operation around the mid-1990s as an alternative to self-cooling of commercial buildings. And I can go into some more specifics about the comparative analysis of creating our own energy through a cooling system, if you'd like, as compared to chilled water, if people have questions.
Rob, so this is going to be $200,000, and then in addition to that, we have $98,440 per year for the.
As an estimated utility cost.
That's an estimate.
And that's set by Consumer Price Index as a rate, but then what they've done is they analyze the peak load. They set a multiplier based on your peak load. So if you're an office building, you have a certain type of peak load. If you're Millennium Park, which also uses the service, you have your own rate set on your demand on the system. Or if you're City Hall, which is also has chilled water system from this company, then you would have negotiated a rate based upon your peak load. And what we started with was, I'll just go into it since we're on the topic. We started off at looking at our peak load due to the ice ribbon at about 460 peak tons. And again, that's a multiplier based upon the rate that's set by the Consumer Price Index. We did the analysis. It did not work out in terms of life cycle costs for us at that peak load. It was just too much in terms of the amount we'd be paying per year. We looked at what Millennium Park is paying, since they also run an ice rink, albeit half the size of this one. And their rate was set at 250 tons as the multiplier for that set rate.
And they are or are not using chilled water?
They are. So they're at the 250 ton mark. But they also have other buildings that they're using chilled water for that they cool in the summertime, so their loads are a little off balance. We did the calculation set at Millennium Park rates. Said the life cycle costs don't work out. We don't break even on the deal, and we said, well, we won't be doing it then. That led to more discussions with the company about, well, when are our peak loads? They are off-load. They're different than everyone else's, and they actually brought our multiplier down to 150 tons, which is a lot lower than 460. We did the life cycle cost on that, and it turns out that we break even on the reduced. Actually, I can tell you what the two systems, the cooling. If we were to create our own chilled water through a cooling tower, our upfront capital costs are close to $690,000 as opposed to $200,000. The total energy and operating costs, the difference between the two is around $17,000 a year. If you do the math,
the difference between the two, between
the cooling tower or creating it ourselves versus the chilled water service, we would be paying, if we created it ourselves but spent a lot more in capital cost, we'd be spending about $17,000 a year less. If you do the math on it, we can break even on that. Basically, what we do is, if you take the difference, multiply the 17,000 by the difference, a number of years, we can break even in 20 years we do better. We beat it by 7 years.
Can I ask you a leading question?
Yeah.
Then this will pay for itself by renting chilled water as opposed to building our own infrastructure during a typical life cycle of the equipment that chills the water.
Yes, we're actually a bit cheaper on life cycle costs going with the chilled water based on the rates that we negotiated. There are some additional benefits that I could point out as well. If we don't have, I have this more technical chart, but it's difficult to understand. I can just go to something that's easier to look at. If we had to build our own cooling tower, you can see that's the facade of the building. It's like a 15 by 30 by 15-foot box, relatively unsightly and not necessarily quiet all the time, that we would have to actually place in the park. That wasn't an attractive option for us. However, if the life cycle costs weren't going to work out, we were prepared to try to work with this within the park. Another one of the benefits of this is that we don't have to deal with that. We can work within our existing mechanical room just through a simple air exchanger. And Thermal Chicago maintains the equipment. We don't have the headaches of maintaining that equipment.
With the labor costs.
We factored the labor costs into the life cycle analysis. So.
And Superintendent Kelly's idea about making this a four-sided climbing wall, you didn't really consider that?
Yeah, we have other equipment inside the climbing wall, so.
So this is the cheapest way to make good ice, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's the cheapest way to make good ice, and actually it's the more attractive and probably more environmentally responsible way to make cheap ice, make good ice. And Millennium Park uses it. They've had success opening their ice rink, even though we had a rough year for opening ice rinks. So it's a dependable system. They're creating energy on off-peak times and decreasing the load on the overall city's infrastructure.
And you're locking into the price, right?
We're locking our tonnage multiplier in, and then the Consumer Price Index creates the variable rate.
So the 98,440 per year is based on the Millennium Park usage.
It's based on, I think, our current usage in daily buy, not Millennium Park. So I mean, it could vary. We'll need to open, but I think in the end, we took it as close as we could to the estimates of what we think we're going to be at. And again, it depends on the year, it depends on how warm things are in
Right.
the winter. And
Do we have a motion? Any more questions?
So moved.
I would second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last waiver roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the Committee on Capital Improvements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee on Capital Improvements is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, December 12th, 2012, at 11:15 a.m., a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Shelby,
Here.
Commissioner Koldeck, Commissioner Lavelle, Commissioner Salgado,
Aye.
Commissioner Allen, Vice President Armstrong, President Trubert.
Here.
A quorum is present. Let the record reflect that General Superintendent Michael Kelly and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. At this time, the Committee of the Whole will consider various matters which are, pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, appropriately discussed in executive session. There will be a discussion of a workers' compensation claim pursuant to 5 ILCS 120, Section 2, subsection C 12. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. The meeting is now in executive session. Is there a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Return to open session. Sorry, Cantrice, took your line.
It's okay.
The Board of Commissioners met in executive session to discuss a workers' compensation claim and have the following matters of new business. There was a discussion of the settlement agreement of Martin Tate v. the Chicago Park District in the amount of $162,279.84. Is there a motion to approve the settlement?
So moved.
Second.
Will the Secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Commissioner Shelby,
Aye.
Commissioner Salgado,
Aye.
Vice President Armstrong, Commissioner Allen, President Trubert.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those against? Motion carried. The Committee of the Whole is now adjourned.